How is everybody doing? And welcome back for another Strength Chat episode. Today, I have got a very special guest for you. Today, I'm joined by a competitive powerlifter with multiple world and national titles to his name, as well as countless records over a 30-plus year career. Today, I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend, David Ricks. How are you doing?
Doing great. I'm very honored to participate on this podcast. I love talking about wellness and strength training, so I'm honored for the invite, for the conversation.
Thanks a lot for taking the time to jump on. How are you? What have you been up to recently? What's been happening in your world? Well,
first, let me correct a little bit of introduction. I've been doing this, I hate to tell myself, 40 years instead of 30 years. I'm dating myself, but I'm doing great. Just like you indicated in terms of multiple world titles, I just came back from winning my 10th World Championship from the house bat, Sweden. So that was truly an honor and a memorable experience. And if you talked about my journey about winning 10 world titles, I was like, there's no way that somebody as humble as me, or in terms of my capability, winning 10 world titles. So I'm just honored to be able to live the dream, as they say.
So because obviously we had a little bit of a chat before recording this podcast, and obviously you mentioned, doing your day job. How was it? Because obviously going over to Sweden, was it straight back home, straight back to work, or how are you feeling after the World Championships?
Well, because when you travel overseas, you got to get there a couple days early, and then of course you got to compete, and so it was really almost like a business trip, because once I got there, I only had 2 days before I competed. And then, of course, I helped out with some other folks. And then I got back, late Sunday night, had to go back to work Monday morning. So it was a week, but it was business.
Yeah. And then how were you feeling getting back, especially going back to work on Monday morning?
It was a little challenge. So I always take some time off after a major competition. So I didn't get back in the gym till almost 2 weeks later, about 10 days later, to kind of get back and feel it. And so this is about a month out now. So I really gotten back to do my normal, what we call strength training, kind of like fitness schedule. So if I'm competing, I'll do 5 days a week, pretty intense, sometimes twice a day. But if I'm just staying in shape, 4 times a week and once a day is enough to kind of just keep everything moving. But I will eventually get into more of a kind of specialized training, do some off-season work where I work on called support muscles and try to do something different, kind of get a little change of mindset a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, cool. And obviously, I did an introduction there, 10th world title, 40 plus years, rather than the 30 that I mentioned. But for everyone listening who might not know your background, how you got involved in powerlifting and kind of your journey or career so far for anyone listening, just want to give a little bit of a background to yourself?
Well, of course, I'm in the United States, and so I'm born in a small town, Barberton, Ohio, and so I played a lot of sports, just like everyone else, growing up in a small hometown, and I played football, and so we had a little strength thing in football, and big thing was the bench club, and I was able to bench about 150 kilos at age 16, and I thought that was great. So we never did any leg training at all, just mostly upper body work. And so then I went to college, and I was fortunate enough to go to the United States Naval Academy. For those who may not know, United States Naval Academy is a very select school for military training, but you get a full education in terms of 4-year degree. So I have a degree in system engineering from the Naval Academy, and then if you go to one of those service academies, you have to serve your country. And I was fortunate enough to serve almost 22 years in the military. So, but during my senior year at the Naval Academy, they had this powerlifting club. And someone said, you're pretty strong, Dave. Why don't you try the powerlifting? I never heard anything about it, never knew anything about it. And so we had a great guy who was actually a SEAL team commander, and he was training at the Naval Academy and the coaching. And so the fall of 1980, that's when I started into powerlifting just a little bit. But as weighing 165 with 75 kilos, I was able to squat, say, about 225 kilos. That's about that same number. and bench about 150. And so my first meet was, I think, February of 1981. I qualified for the Collegiate Nationals for the Naval Academy. And then March in Toonstown, Pennsylvania, I took in the Collegiate National, took third, and I did okay, and I wouldn't think too much about it. So I graduated, and I didn't think about powerlifting as a really great hobby. But in the military, when you get stationed in different places, there are a lot of places to train on the military bases. So I kept doing powerlifting as a hobby on these military bases. And in the mid 1980s, I got stationed in Hawaii. I found a local gym in Hawaii called the Power Pit, and found some really good powerlifters that really turned me on about training and whatever. And I did the local state championships in Hawaii, and I did okay. And then in 1989, I went to California, and I went to a military base and started working out, and there's some people know how to train, because I used to train heavy all the time because that's what the coach told me at the Naval Academy. But he was a SEAL team guy; he wasn't really a strength guy. But after I graduated, I tried to go heavy all the time, squat heavy all the time, deadlift all the time, bench all the time. What I found out is that when I would try to compete, my numbers wouldn't go that much. It wouldn't go that much heavier. I'd be overtraining. I didn't realize it. When I got in late 1980s, that's when someone told me about periodization, how to kind of stretch out your heavy workouts over a longer period of time. Start at about 74% higher reps, and then slowly transition to lower reps, different volume. And I said, I'm not sure if that will work because I never tried it before. But I said, what the heck? And it really transformed how I lifted. But also in California, that's when I also found ADFPA, American Drug Free Powerlifting Federation, and found out in terms of difference in terms of tested and non-tested training, in terms of competition. I'm a lifetime natural athlete. Being in the military, you try to stay. Your fitness is your number one thing. So I never thought about taking any performance-enhancing drugs. It's just my personal philosophy. But I try to find places to compete were drug tested, and I found out ADFPA was the venue. But also, I also competed in the USPF because the military at the time was also having military nationals, and the winner would go to USPF nationals, and the winner of that would go to the Worlds. And so I was fortunate one year to do the military nationals 1 year, and took second at the nationals USPF. But the following year, I got back in shape and won the USPF Nationals, and also I won the ADFP Nationals. And so the interesting piece was that I had one opportunity to go to. I didn't I was going to do more than world trip. It was a unique opportunity. So at the time, for the ADFP Nationals, the world was WDDPF. For those who understand powerlifting history, that was the drug-free world. But the competition wasn't that great. I looked at the results. If you was a U.S. lifter, basically you was gonna win it hands down. And so I'm not into. I like competition. I like to push myself. Yeah. But the IPF worlds, you look at those numbers in the powerlifting magazine. You're gonna bring it. And I said, well, if I only got one chance to go to World Championship, I'd rather go to the IPF Worlds. And so I had an opportunity to go to the IPF Worlds, the 75 kilo. And I didn't know who the competition was, but I was fortunate enough. So that's when I won my first World Championship. And so it's been an interesting journey in terms of how I started. But I didn't think that I was good enough to be one of those guys that will be on the cover of Powerlifting USA or whatever, and people know who I am. And so I just kind of get it to kind of have as a hobby because my military career comes a priority. And so I just squeeze it in whenever I had a chance in terms of training and travel, whatever. And so I've been fortunate and blessed enough that I'm able to be this long in the sport and had some unique experiences.
Ah, cool. So obviously, seeing the changes in powerlifting and getting involved in it. Obviously, you said there you did it as a hobby, and obviously one of the questions that I always like to ask, especially at the level that you compete at, on the world stage, if you like, even though that you still enjoy it, was there a time where you felt as though, right, okay, I need to take this a little bit more seriously now? Or is it just a case of because you enjoy it, you've never felt as though you've had to take it, seriously, even though you like that competition, challenging for world titles and national titles?
Well, that's an interesting thing. And so, I mean, like any hobby thing that you enjoy, you put your passion in. Once you get a little success, it kind of feeds your curiosity. So, well, if I did that, would I change something? Maybe I can get better. And so once when I started doing national championship, it was really by a unique conversation, because when I got stationed in California in the late 1980s. I did the California State Championship a couple years in a row, and I did pretty well. And I was okay with that. And then one guy says, Dave, if you'd have went to the nationals, you would have done blank. I said, oh. And I said, so I started setting my goals a little higher to go to the ADFP nationals, and that's how so you measure yourself on a larger scale, and and like all of us, sometimes you fall a little short, which is okay, but you use those experiences to say, okay, and you step back and say, okay, I need to do this to get better, and that's when you're talking about doing more seriously, because if you really want to be successful, you always want to improve, and you always look ways to open yourself to new ideas in terms of experiences, reading a lot of different stuff. And so, I've been doing this for years, and over the 40 years, I have, knock on wood, I've only bombed out 3 times, and each time really was my fault. And my first big learning experience was my second year at the ADP Nationals. So I took second the first year, and at the 75 kilo weight class, and I did okay. And I said, well, shoot, if I train a little harder, I think I could take it. And so I worked really hard, but my weight, in terms of how I would drop my weight, wasn't very scientific. Okay, and I would just do it by half, just really, it wasn't very good in terms of how I would drop the weight. I wait till the last minute and try to starve myself. And so I was in California, and I flew to it was in Pennsylvania, and my dad lived in Ohio, not that far away. And I said, he never saw me lift. I said, why don't you drive up and see me lift? And so I start myself the night before, and then we weigh in. And my main competitor, he was weighing in, and the day of, and I looked at everybody got put the opening weights, and I see what he's opening up at. And I said, well, if he opened at that number, it was somewhere in the probably 265, 260 kilo area. Well, I can open it that heavy. Well, so now we get ready to warm up, and the meet was off schedule, and so time was skipping. So I didn't pay attention. And all of a sudden, when it got to our weight class, I said, no, we're gonna keep the original schedule. And so I didn't really warm up very well, and so I didn't change my opener, and I didn't think about my warm up. So we get to the opening weight, and it's one of those things when, if you ever lifted, if you get underneath a squat and you walk out, it feels like a ton of bricks. That's not a good feeling. And so it felt like a ton of bricks. I didn't go deep enough. And then, okay, second one, I went a little deeper, 3 red lights. And so, okay, I had one more lift. I said, well, I'm going to go deep. And I went deeper, really deep, and I couldn't come out of the hole. And it is what it is. And so I have my dad there, and he want to watch the rest of the meet. I said, Dad, I know you want to see me lift, but I can't bear watching the rest of the meet, knowing that I was that close to doing well, to going from doing well to second or third place, or even first to nothing. We gotta go and get some eat and just call it a day. And so I thought about this. I'm not gonna lift anymore. This is it. And that's it. Yeah, you need to step back and just relax a little bit and think about what you did and what you didn't do, and maybe you want to get back into it. And so when I got back to California, and I did that, took some time off, and about the second week, I got back in the gym a little bit, and I thought about it. I said, I did some stupid things. So let me get back on the plan. And I had a meet, a meet targeted 3 months later. I did very well, and I started that up again. And so my next big meet was the Military Nationals, and it was in Anytown Gap, Pennsylvania. I've never been to the Military Nationals. I've just been so busy, but I got an invitation to be on the Navy team. And at that meet, I beat Osby Alexander. He was the big 165 champion and world champion, and he'd never been beat. And so, and we were stationed at the same place. So we would train together, and I was like, he didn't think too much of me because I was just local trainer. He didn't think of me in a competition. So I never told anybody I was going to be at this place. So I get there at the military nationals, and he said, Dave, you're here. Yeah, I'm just seeing what I can do. But in the back of my mind, I said, if I have a good day, he's a little off, I'm going to take this guy. And I was fortunate enough to have a decent day, and I beat him. And I didn't realize, I knew who he was, but people said, after I beat him, said, who's this Dave Rich guy? And then after that meeting, I went to the lifetime drug-free now, ADFPA, and I set some national records and did extremely well at 75 kilos. And so once I started hitting that level, I said, maybe I got something here. Maybe I can keep doing this. And so and you got to keep everything in perspective, because we don't do this for a living, because you don't make any money. And so you still got your career, and I had a military career, and plus have family. And so you kind of squeeze that in as things progress. And so there'd be times where I just wouldn't compete for a while. Sometimes I wouldn't. So I did what we call a semi-retirement several times through my career. And I tell somebody I'm retiring, I said, yeah, right, yeah, but we'll check you 6 months, you'll be doing something else. And so my philosophy that this is a marathon, it's a lifetime journey. And so you shouldn't be all, you want to do well in terms of whatever you want to do, compete, but don't get all fixated that because you don't do well as one meet, that all of a sudden you got just, be down on yourself. It's another step in the journey, and you got to pick yourself up and see what your next step is. And the key thing is to be healthy and enjoy the journey. That's the biggest thing. Enjoy the journey, because there's other people who love to have those similar experiences. And so nothing is given, but you gotta, let's say, pay rent every day.
Yeah, definitely. With that as well, just a couple of things from what you've mentioned there, especially, with the people that you've competed with, who have been your sort of biggest influences, or, people that you've looked up to and looked to see what they're doing to then, see if you can implement them as well throughout the whole time that you've been involved in powerlifting?
Well, it's interesting because when I went to my my first World Championship, and I looked at the U.S. team, and these were legends. I mean, you had Gene Bell, you had Dan Austin, you had Ed Cohn, you had Kirk Kowalski, and these are guys you read in the magazine about. And so to be on a team with those guys, and to see how they would warm up, how they would compete, it really puts you in perspective. And so those are the type of guys that, in terms of, and then Anthony Harris, also I've been on a world championship team. And so those are unique individuals, because you see, especially Anthony Harris, because, he had a couple of tournaments, he actually injured himself and still finished the tournament. And so to compete at that level, have been an injury, and still finish the meet, that's amazing. And so, and seeing people how they maintain that level of excellence at the high level, it's truly remarkable. And so those are the type of people that I kind of shadow and try to see how they do stuff.
And then obviously you mentioned there about, lifting quite heavy, but then gravitating towards, more periodization and making you train a little bit more dialed in a little bit more. But what's been sort of, the biggest changes that you've added in, when you're talking about weight cuts and that sort of stuff? Are you always, looking to adjust and adapt with your training and the things outside of the gym as well? Because you've said there about be consistent, be healthy, stay injury free. How have you kept that consistency, and then what have you seen the biggest changes in your own training, over the time that you've been lifting?
Well, I think two things. One is in terms of, it used to be you wait for the monthly Powerlifting USA to get the meet results and the latest training, scoop. And now everything is Instagram, whatever. And so you see videos and everything. And so, and you see people doing whatever training regimen, then you kind of look at that and say, how do you want to adapt that? But the other piece of that is nutrition and your health, because as you start getting older, your health and your nutrition is so key aspect about it. And so, especially if you gotta, do your weight, losing weight or gaining weight, and then how you eat and your supplements. I'm big on supplements, and so, and people say, why do you take supplements, especially for a natural lifting? Well, if you're eating healthy, and then you're doing a regular, just staying in shape to the training, you don't really need extra supplements. But if you start into a very intense program into the training for a competition where you're training 5 days a week, sometimes twice a day, and you start training at percentages above 74% to almost 94%, well, you're putting a lot of stress on your body. And your normal, nutritional intake will be insufficient to maintain that level of intensity that your body needs to perform. And so your supplements that I would take, it helps you to kind of that next level. And I use the analogy of like being a race car engine. NASCAR here in the United States is big, powerful in terms of racetrack. Well, if you're just driving around town, regular fuel for your car is good enough. But if you want to drive a NASCAR circuit, you're driving 200 miles an hour, you got to have different fuel in your body. And that's why I use an analogy in terms of training. And so I'll take a whey protein right before I work out, especially a heavy workout. But I'll take a multivitamin. I take omega-3, which is good for the heart. I take glucosamine for your joints. I take turmeric for your joints. Take the B complex series for energy. The C complex series for recovery. I take free branched chain aminos. I take D vitamin. I think I take one more. And so you said, and so you don't know, it's like, and also I take creatine, concrete creatine in terms of strength. And so it doesn't happen like you get it, you eat it one day and all of a sudden next day you feel like a Superman. It enhances your training regimen so that you can push yourself workout to workout. Because, especially for right now I train 8 to 10 weeks. When you get about halfway through your, week number 4, week number 5, your body gets tired. You're working, you're doing everything else, and you need to make sure that you put the right food in your body so you can handle that intensity. And so we're not professional athletes where your 100% of your day is training. We all got to have our day jobs. And so you got to be able to provide yourself enough energy to sustain that, and mental energy. And so I think that's a key aspect. The other thing is, when you do have injuries, step back and taking care of your body. When I was, in my 20s, early 30s, I would, train through the pain and push myself, and sometimes it wouldn't do. That wouldn't be a good thing to do. But as you get older, you just can't do that because your body says, you're overtraining. And so knowing when to step back, and because losing, not pushing yourself that one training day allows you to come back the following day, the following week, so you can train at the same level. If you push yourself, you may set yourself back a longer period of time if you push yourself. And so I've had some minor injuries here and there, and I know when to step back and go to a chiropractor to kind of get myself adjusted. So chiropractic care for me has been the big enhancement. And the first time I got exposed to one was when I was in the late 80s in California. I tweaked my knee training, and so I went to him. And I'm a sumo deadlifter, and he's also a powerlifter himself. So he and I became friends. So we made each other meet, but I didn't realize the chiropractor. So I called him and said, "Doc, could I get a tune-up?" So I went to him, and he said, "Take your shoes off, Dave." And I said, "Why do you take my shoes off? It's my knee." I said, "Dave, you're an engineer." I said, "Yeah, I'll tell you how to build bridges. Don't tell me how to be a doctor." I said, "Okay, I got it." And so he felt beneath my arch, and my arch was tender. My arch had collapsed. It was weak. And I didn't realize it until he touched it. He said, "You got weak arches," so he worked on it. And he said, "You need, a lot of people wear, just slippers for deadlift. But because of my weak arches, I need to wear a shoe that has some arch support." He said, "Without it, your arch will collapse once in a while, and your knees will try to overcompensate, and that's what caused the injury." And so once he did that, I had never, used I always deadlift with a shoe with an arch support, and the injuries never recurred itself again. And so that was huge. The other time I went to a chiropractor, it was mid-30s, and I had taken some time, about a year off, because I have military travel into the training, going to a different location. And I said, well, let me get, and I was in my early 40s, and I said, let me get back into it. I pushed myself, and I tweaked my back. No, it was a deadlift. I was doing, it was about upper 600, and I started to pull. My left leg was completely mounted. Of course, I dropped the weight, and I laid back on the mat, and I felt a tingling go from my left tip to my toe. And I said, that's not good. So this is in Charleston, South Carolina, and Bernie was a chiropractor, great guy. He's also a powerlifter. And so I went to him, and this was like less than 2 weeks from a competition. And I said, well, I guess I'll have to. So he said, your hips are out of alignment, which causes your sciatic nerve to get inflamed. That's what caused it. And so he did some realignment of my hips. Then he did some soft tissue work and said, well, Dave, just kind of stay very light, do a lot of stretching and flexibility. And I said, well, I need to kind of, do I need to cancel this competition? Because I don't think I can lift. I said, no. You just kind of just keep it light, but do a lot of flexibility. So I took his advice. So I had, less than 10 days, and I did that. And so now this was in Texas. So I flew to Texas, and I had a massage therapist there at the venue, and I moved my back a little bit. So now the morning of the competition, did my normal stretching, and the first time since the incident, I didn't feel no pain in my hips and my lower leg. I said, oh, hopefully this is pretty good. And I squatted pretty good. I think this was 181, so 80 kilos. I squatted something over 6, I think. Then benched somewhere in the mid 4s or whatever. And then now I got to deadlift. And so I opened up real light. And I think my second deadlift was like really 272 kilos. So I got that. So I already had the meet one. And I said, should I push it or not? And I said, put the weight on the bar that I injured myself and see what happens. And I smoked it. And so that injury has never recurred itself again. And so I'm now in Florida. And so I've found another good chiropractor, Dr. Damien, and he's also a powerlifter too. And so I go to him 2 or 3 times during a training cycle to give myself a tune-up, and it makes a huge difference. And so stretch, I do a lot of stretching, which I didn't do before, especially for a major heavy lift, especially squatting and deadlifting, even benching. And so I'm big on that, and especially, and also nutrition to the water. And I already talked about the supplements. And so all those are pieces of the puzzle, because when you're training at that elite level, those little things can make a huge difference. And so when you're younger, you have so much raw talent, you can get by not being as precise on every aspect of your performance plan in terms of nutrition, training, whatever, and you get by with it because you have untapped potential. But as you get more mature in the sport, those little aspects help you squeeze that extra potential. Because you're not gonna make a 50-pound gain in your squat or bench, whatever. You're gonna make smaller gains in those aspects of your nutrition, your training, and flexibility, and taking care of your body can add that extra piece, so you can achieve that extra small increment. So your gains are smaller, but they're more quality gains, and you have to be settled in the process that you don't have to worry about going heavy frequently and doing your Instagrams to kind of check this out. You know that if you follow the journey, at the end of the journey, 8 or 10 weeks, you will hit that number. And so you just have to relax in the process and enjoy the journey. And that's probably the biggest thing, because just like all of us early in the process, we need that confidence level. And so we kind of do a mini max, very frequently, because you want to test yourself, which is understandable. But as you get older, you realize you don't need to test yourself. As long as you stay with the plan, at the end of that journey, 8 to 10 weeks, you will hit the numbers you need to hit. But you have to be confident in the journey and the path you're taking. And that's why having a coach sometimes helps you out, so that the coach been there, done that, and so he can tell you, just relax, just follow the plan, versus getting antsy and try to push yourself. Because what happens is that if you start doing too many we call max attempts, you're early in your training regimen, then when you get to the meet, all of a sudden you're not there. It's not there because you overstressed your body. And so for a natural athlete, that is hugely, hugely important that you really got to pace yourself.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things that, you finished on it there, being able to pace yourself rather than everyone thinking, yeah, I want to lift the maximum weight that I can straight away, and you said a couple of times, it's a journey. It's not a case of, yeah, I'm going to do a 12-week program. I've got exactly what I need. It's a case of, you've got to follow that process a little bit more. One of the things that you mentioned a lot about recovery, looking after your body, the supplements, and working with chiropractors. Has that increased and decreased throughout your career, if you like, or as supplements and, being able to, focus on these things like stretching a little bit more, has that increased as you've got older because you've got that more experience and you've got a better understanding of how to maintain and stay injury-free?
Well, and I would tell you that I used to think that, and you fact yourself as professional athletes do, and you think that once they get 30, also their performance drops, and they get to 40, that's it. And especially after 40, you think their career is over and they do other things, and so you think that the powerlifting and strength training would be the same thing. And if you'd have told me that 40 years ago, being a young guy at the Naval Academy, that when I started my journey, that I'd still be doing this 40 years later, I said you're smoking something, because I where I see something like that. And so, because I thought that once I got to 40, that my competitive opportunities, especially against younger lifters, are over. I mean, I can still do the master thing, but competing, having numbers that are competitive enough against the younger guys are all over. But what you find out is that if you kind of take care of your body and like I said, understanding the journey, that you still can make performance gains, but you have to pick your moments in terms of when you want to compete. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I could do 3 to 4 meets a year and be, and hit some top numbers. Now as a master lifter, you gotta pace yourself a little wider. And so, because it takes a while for your body to recover from a major meet, and then you can't get back in the gym and hit those numbers you hit at the end of your training cycle. And so it takes a while to ramp back up. And so I got back in the gym actually last week a little bit and did some light stuff, but I'm still not, I'm not in full training mode yet. And so next week I'll start pushing some numbers, but so it'll be week number 3 before I start pushing some numbers. And so like I had that, World Champ meet at end of September, and to have to do a competition in November, that ain't gonna happen. Now, if I was in my 20s and 30s, yeah, I probably could do that. And so you have to pace yourself. But the other key is that supplements are now so evolved that they make a difference. Back in the day when I was in my late 20s and 30s, supplements were okay, but there wasn't wasn't as enhancing as they should be. And so you took them, but you didn't ensure how well they would work. And so it was I'll say the quality of the product wasn't that great. Now you can go online and you can find tremendous opportunities into the supplements and really narrow down where you need that extra in terms of help with your nutritional aspect. But how to cut weight, now you can get an app on the phone to track the macros. So your nutrition piece, how you fuel your body, is a total another level. And so for us, we call mature lifters, over 40, it really enhances. You look at and here in America, one of our professional football players, Tom Brady, he's 44, and he's competing at a very high level. I think he's amazing, but he has taken his nutrition and his training to a whole nother level. So he's really an anomaly. But for us, in terms of strength training, for me, it's kind of like my wellness. It's kind of like my wellness pick me up. And so people say, you work 8 to 10 hours a day. How can you go to the gym after that? Well, it really helps me just kind of relieve the stresses. And yeah, of course, you got to work yourself up to kind of work out. You're going heavy, but I make that switch within a few minutes of stretching, start warming up, and I'm in the zone. And then when I finish, of course, my body just kind of like, it allows me to release all the stress of the body. And so I can go home and sleep very well.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and so, but the other aspect, if you do have an injury, whatever, you have regular checkups and you and you make sure you monitor your physical journey, and so that you keep everything in proper perspective, and so that it doesn't become all and be all and trying to hit a weight in the gym, because sometimes it's just not there, and you don't over push yourself in the gym to really give you a chance for injury, because as a mature lifter, when you get injured, it really sets you back, and it's a long journey trying to get back to where you're at, and so you guard yourself in terms of overtraining as a mature lifter. Guys in the 20s and 30s, take them maybe 2 or 3 weeks before they hit the overtraining mode. For us mature lifters, I know, like within a minute after I leave the rack, that I'm done. There's no more the gas. I'm on fumes, and so.
Yeah, with that as well, because obviously we've spoken a lot about what things have changed and adjusted, and what things have gone well to keep that consistency and still compete at that biggest level. But especially touching on that, when you're saying there, when things aren't going well, when not to push it. What has been, and especially traveling around in the military, what has been sort of your biggest challenges, do you think, throughout it? Because especially, you only gain experience and knowledge by competing more, by staying in the game longer and following that journey a little bit. And that you mentioned a couple of lessons that you've learned, but what has been the biggest challenges that you've found, throughout lifting, with traveling, managing work, and all those things?
Well, the two aspects. One, from a training standpoint, you put numbers on the paper, and then I train myself because I matured and I know how to train my body, and I use input, from other people. But I used to, when my 30s, especially my 30s, once I put together a long-term training program, I'd be so pushed to try to hit that number in the gym just my training. If I didn't hit it, I said, oh man, my whole training thing is kind of like just out the window, and I want to hit the end goal. And what you realize is that sometimes for that day, it ain't there. And you can come back the following week and still get back on the plan. And so you don't have to get all worked out a number that is listed in your training program. If you don't hit it, that your whole goal at the end of the program is all for naught. And so you have to work through that. And the other aspect is meet day and competition. So you got the nerves of, especially at a big meet, especially at a national meet or a world championship. You got the traveling, whatever, and the nerves, and you start warming up, and you realize it just ain't there in terms of your body. And so the question is, do you check your ego and you back off your numbers, or do you push it? And 9 times out of 10. You need to check the ego, because sometimes it's just not there, and adjust your numbers based upon how you're feeling that day. Regardless of your training, your numbers, whatever, it is what it is. I mean, you're not gonna magically change how your body feels that day. And so your nutrition that day, and how you warm up, and how you feel as you hit those last warm ups. And so I've adjusted my opening attempts, especially as a master lifter, depending on how I felt. And so, for example, I'll use an example of this last tournament, which is in Sweden. So I had some really good training numbers, especially squat. I had tripled 320 kilos in training. And so my goal was to potentially put on the bar the open squat rack, and which has been 331, whatever. And so I didn't tell nobody, but that's my mental goal. But my training numbers that's where I was pushing myself. But so I traveled, was good. But the night before the event, I had a stomach virus, wasn't feeling well. And then the day of the meet, I lifted at 2. I was coaching someone, and I wasn't still feeling well. I started warming up. It just didn't, my body wasn't feeling right. So I opened up very light, opened at 265 kilos, which is, I had never in recent years opened anything less than 600 pounds, 272 kilos. And this was 265. And so, and good thing I did. So I got it. I did okay. Then I jumped up to, I think, 287, 285 kilos. And felt okay, but I was mechanically off. I think it's the stomach. And I'm glad I did. So I was able to kind of got in the meet. And so, but as the day went on, I felt better and better. And I was fortunate enough that to break my own world record in the bench, 198 kilos. And then when I got to the deadlift, I opened up very light because I wasn't sure how I felt. And I think at 260 kilos. And then my coach says, Dave, you know, you got an opportunity to break your own world record. I did it in Sweden 2 years ago, and it was only like 272. So I did, 275, and I broke it. And so I had one more deadlift, and I was feeling really good. He said, well, Dave, you can push it one more time. You can get your total record and the deadlift record. I said, well, what's the number I need to put on the bar? It was a 287. And I went there and I smoked it. I probably could have done 300 kilos that day, easy. Yeah. But if I opened up heavy in the squat and bound down the meat, opened the heavy in deadlift, it wouldn't have been there. And so you kind of have to pace yourself. And so because you always can, like I always use the analogies, is either start low and jump up. But if you start high and you push it too heavy, that's all you got. And so that's the thing that you have to, especially if you're competing at that level. So you have to take all the noise out in terms of who's your competitor is, whatever. You got to look at how you feeling that day and where you're at nutrition wise and everything else, so you can feel it, so you can make that right call. And sometimes a coach can help you do that if you're inexperienced to do that. But that, especially at that level, when you put that much time in to travel to get to compete at that level, you want to make sure that you can finish the process on a platform. And to put it in perspective, in 2018 was the National World Championships in Canada, and I was the top ranked lifter, and I was looking to hit some big numbers. And I just didn't turn 60, I think it was. Yeah, whatever. Well, but I bombed in the squat. There was only 290 kilos. Yeah, 290 kilos. But strength-wise, I was okay because I couldn't get my technique was a little off. But I had a great bench. I actually set up a informal world record in the bench and deadlift as a master, but I wouldn't credit it because I didn't get a squat in. And all I had to do to get a squat in, I don't want another world championship. So that was going to be my and I said, man, I can't go out like that. So instead of retiring, I decided to stay there for a little longer to kind of finish the journey. I can't go out like that. But that was about, that's a pretty humbling experience to do that. So I've done, like I said earlier, competed over 40 years and competed and bombed out 3 times. And each time was my fault. And so so that really kind of take everything away from your ego and say, okay, now if we're going to do this, well, let's get back to basics. And so one thing I did on the squat, I kind of changed my squat shoes a little bit and worked on my mechanics because it is what it is. And so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you touched on it there a couple of times about the ego side of things of, always wanting to, smash things, and set loads of PBs, whereas actually, you can build that total, do the lifts. And you mentioned there on the deadlift, 300 was there that day. However, if you want to get the win, if you want to get the record, we don't have to push it when it doesn't need it, save that little bit extra in the tank for when you need it a little bit more. Obviously, as well, mentioning, 40 plus years in powerlifting, and we've spoken about, your journey and lessons learned. But as a sport as a whole, especially right now, powerlifting is really popular. It's there's a lot more people getting involved with it. The World Championships are a lot more popular. How have you seen, or what are your thoughts on the change in powerlifting as a sport in the whole time you've been involved in it?
Well, it's interesting because, when I got involved, the only aspect to compete was geared lifting. And so you had the squat suit and you had the knee wraps, and eventually then the benchers came in vogue. And that was the only way you could compete because that was the only opportunity. And then I think in 2010, that's when raw lifting, especially in the US, came in vogue. And they started having raw tournaments. And what you're finding is, especially in the U.S., because for raw lifting, you don't need to be at a power gym. You can do it at a commercial gym because you don't need all the equipment. And what you're finding is that athletes, from different sports are now into powerlifting. They're doing, from CrossFit to powerlifting, some other one, track athlete. And they're doing, because they've got the background, the mental attitude in terms of how to train, they adapt to powerlifting exceptionally well. And you're seeing a tremendous amount of competitiveness into raw lifting. And so you look at the classic the world championships now. You look at the numbers at classic powerlifting. It's amazing that these numbers these kids are hitting, especially the super heavyweight. Now they're squatting, over 450 kilos, 440 kilos. Used to be, you hear someone squatting over 40 kilos, they're in a quote squat suit and knee wrap. You're having basically raw lifters doing those numbers. And so, or if you had told me that I would be as a raw lifter squatting over 700 pounds, I said, man, there's no way. Because you'd think that you need to have knee wrap, squats to do that. And so the training philosophies and how to train the body to handle a lot of weight has really just transformed in terms of people involved in the sport, because they see that, and he's not wearing gear. If that person can do it, well, maybe I can try it. And so it has allowed people at kids, especially at the teenage level, to really get into the sport and to start being mature in the sport, so that by the time they get in the mid-20s, they're doing some amazing things. And so it's just fascinating that how it evolved. Because I used to do my last we call gear, equipped meet was the Honors in 2014. And I did okay. I had an off meet, but I had a great training. Up to that at Quest Gym, but I had an off day. And then I had a job change and some other things. And I was a little injured, not major, but the tweaks in here. And I said, let me just back off. I had to, move from one place to another. And so it was like 9 months before I really got back into the gym, really training. And so I didn't think I was going to do any competition. I was going to stay in shape and call it a career. And then I got the bug again. And I said, I'm not going to do. I said, I'm not going to do the quick stuff. I'll get in the raw thing, and I'll do a local meet to kind of qualify for the Raw Nationals as a master lifter. And so Matt Gary, he had a gym in Maryland, and I was living in Virginia, and said, "Can I be a guest lifter at your local meet?" And he and I, we go way back. He said, "Yeah, sure, Dave. However, Dave, you can't do token lift. You got to do some work." So what do you mean? Because they know who you are, and so they know that you're gonna be there. You got to do a little something. And so I had been training for a short period of time, and within 6 weeks, this is at 205 weight class, I squatted maybe 220, maybe 230 kilos, deadlifted 240 kilos, and barely benched, I'll say 145, 140, 150 kilos. And that was July of 2015. Now I qualified for the senior, and so I wasn't sure whether or not I'd be a really competitive guy. So I went to the senior nationals, the masters, and my squat moved up, and I got over 275 kilos, squat and deadlift, and I benched 198 kilos, about 190 kilos. And so that was the September of 2015. Now I qualified for the IPF Classic Worlds, and it was in the United States. It was in Killeen, Texas. And my training had evolved, just raw lifting, where that I had the opportunity, and I broke the open squat record at the World Championships. And that was June in Killeen, Texas, and at 57 years old. And if you'd have told me that, that was, I think I did. It was under 320. It had to be 310. It had to be around 310 kilos at age 57. And if you'd have told me when I started about a year ago, getting back in shape, that I'd be at that level, I said, there's no way. And so it's all about pacing yourself through your training and see what your body can do. And so it keeps me energized to see if I still can push my body to another level and staying healthy. But wherever you train at, where you work at, the environment of your training environment, your home or whatever your gym at, help you along that journey, because it's about the environment and being consistent in the environment on a regular basis.
Yeah, definitely. It's with that as well. You know, when you mentioned there about pushing your body, and someone had said to you setting a world record at 57. You'd have been crazy. What does the future hold for Dave Ricks? What's your next goal? Because obviously another World Championships to your name this year. Where are you at? What can we expect to see?
I don't know. That's a good question, because winning 10 is kind of unique. And I thought, well, as soon as I win my 10th, and I'll call it a career. But I didn't hit the numbers I wanted to hit. So I think I have some unfinished business. So I haven't decided yet, but I would like to, just like, storybook endings where you win the world, you kind of hit the numbers you want to hit, and you call it a career. And so if I'm still healthy and my body still can push itself, I would like to, in a big meet, squat. Actually, I did it at the U.S. National. I squatted almost 700 pounds, 317 kilos. But I like, as someone over 60 years old, squat over 320 kilos in a meet, and pull something around about close to 320 kilos in the meet. So I have, so I'm not sure if I can do that, but if my body is, and so I think I can still tweak my training a little bit to achieve those goals, but everything's got to be in perfect alignment. So I like the challenge to see whether or not, as someone of my senior stature, can still push the limits. But I mean, I could get a severe injury and call it a career. And so if it happens, if the body says you're done, I'm very well satisfied to call it a career and just be we call a recreational lifter. But when you're able to kind of achieve, you're close to that mountaintop, if you tweak something a little bit, it fuels your passion. So we'll see. I don't know, but I would like, I think I left some unfinished business at the World Championship level. Even though I had a great, considering everything I did, because I didn't think I had a great day after the squat, and then of course the bench was better than I did, and of course the deadlift. And then when I looked at the numbers, I beat the guys total wise who were in the M2, which is 50 to 59, and the M1s, which are the 40 to 49. And then I looked at the open guys, I would have took them 10th, even though I had an off day. And so when you're able to still compete against the young folks and as an old guy, it kind of fuels your passion to say that age is only a point in time. And so we'll see, because you see a lot you hear stories of people who are master lifters who do some unique stuff, and it's all about taking care of your body. But I like the passion, enthusiasm, being around folks who are pushing the limit. It keeps me on edge. And so when I go to my local power gym and Boyd Barbell Center, the young guys are just pushing the limit, and I squat them, I coach them, and then when I'm ready to get into the wire, they're right next to me and say, we got you. We know what you got to do. And so and it keeps me honest. And so that keeps me motivated.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. I'll be looking forward to see you pushing those limits. It'd be awesome to see. Obviously, quite a lot of topics covered there. A lot of pearls of wisdom in terms of the lessons that you've learned and all those sort of things throughout your sort of lifting career, if you like. Thanks a lot, Dave, for taking the time to jump on. Really enjoyed chatting with you. The last question that I like to ask, I know you've mentioned a couple of things, but what would be for everyone listening, what would be your take-home points or words of wisdom from everything that we've chatted about today?
Well, I think you have to keep everything in balance in terms of your life, your religion, and using lifting as a way to fuel your passion and helping other people out. We all like to take first place and you win records, whatever, but it's all about helping other people along that journey. And you want to work on your own journey itself, but it's all about helping other people. And that's why when we call my day job, I'm the county engineer from Palm Beach County, because I love public service. And so helping people is really my passion. And so I use that as all aspects of my life, and enjoy the journey, enjoy the experiences, enjoy the people you meet and the conversation, just like the conversation today. So I'm honored that you reached out to an old guy and to have this conversation, because sometimes you say, well, they key on the young folks because they're doing some new things. But say, well, we don't know about this old guy, but he just was sure what he does. So I really am humbled that you want to spend a little time and listen to what I do once in a while. So I appreciate that. But yet the thing about public service and helping other people out, I say is the key pearls of wisdom, and always be open to learning in terms of what you do and how you can improve yourself, because that's how we all can get better in our journey in life.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was some really good words of wisdom to finish on. And like I say, thanks a lot for taking the time to jump on, you know, from seeing your lifts at the World Championships and the fact that you're still pushing those limits. You know, I want to have that conversation and, you know, see, you know, what is it from the experiences that you've learned. Just on that, for everyone listening who might have any questions about what we've chatted about today, or, you know, might have any questions about what we've spoken about, where could people reach out to you or ask any questions if they need any help with lifting?
Yeah, you can catch me on Instagram. It's let's see, it is. Yeah, I can remember on Instagram page. Here we go. I'm technologically challenged, and so Scott David is my Instagram page. So reach out to me on Instagram. I'm open to any personal conversations, whatever. I enjoy just the community of positive of strength training. So thank you. I can't thank you enough.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Dave, for taking the time to jump on. Thanks a lot to everyone listening. I will see you all next week.